the Philadelphia Eagles went into the frozen tundra of Green Bay, fought defensively, and were able to come away with a 10-7 victory over the Green Bay Packers, leaving the Eagles defense with high marks and the Eagles offense with question marks. Welcome to the Bird's Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. This was not the Philadelphia Eagles finding a way to win, or the Philadelphia Eagles snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, as sometimes has been alluded to with this particular team, or even over the years. This is the Philadelphia Eagles defense covering for egregious mistakes by the offense and by the coaching staff, ultimately coming away with the victory. In the vast majority of games, if you only score 10 points, you're not winning the game. But the fact that the Eagles' defense had to fight and really rose to the occasion deserves to be commended. So we can't lose sight of the fact that this is in fact an Eagles victory. The Eagles do rise to 7-2. They are very much in the driver's seat when it comes to the NFC East. They do currently hold the tiebreaker in the race for the number 1 seed in the NFC, because the Eagles hold currently a better conference record than the Seattle Seahawks. We can't lose sight of all of that, and we can't lose sight of the fact either that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are now 7-1 in games where they've had at least 11 days worth of rest. But we can also pick out a lot of the problems. It is very true that all of those things are accurate, and we also have to take a look at the fact that the Eagles have a lot of problems offensively. But let's start with this defense, because the Philadelphia Eagles defense, as I mentioned, rose to the occasion. The Eagles were able to hold the Green Bay Packers to just 261 total net offensive yards. The Packers were only able to get 18 first downs on the day. The Packers were 5 for 13 on third downs, and they were entering the game with about 50%, maybe a little bit less than that, in terms of third down completion percentage on the season. So the fact that the Eagles were able to hold the Packers to 5 for 13 on the day, along with 0 third down conversions in the first half, is huge. Additionally, the Eagles were able to hold the Green Bay Packers scoreless for well over 3.5 quarters of this game. The Packers' first and only points came off of a 6-yard run by Josh Jacobs with 5:49 left to play in the game, putting the Packers to within a field goal of the Philadelphia Eagles. We also have to acknowledge the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles defense really showed up against Jordan Love in particular. Jordan Love was 20 for 36 in the passing game for 176 yards. The Eagles were also able to force a couple of turnovers, one of them coming off of a strip sack by Jordan Love, who was sacked 3 times over the course of the game. Love also had 5 carries for 28 yards in the run game. So the Philadelphia Eagles were able to get a lot of pressure. Jordan Love was dealing with them all day, and this was a real great showing for them. If there was an area of concern, the Philadelphia Eagles defense didn't really have a ton of answers for Josh Jacobs, who had 74 yards on 21 carries. But as the game went on, Josh Jacobs was able to get more and more yards, it felt like, and the Eagles just didn't seem to have an answer for him later on in the game. But on the whole, there were plenty of positive contributors all throughout the game. Zach Bond seemed to be everywhere. He had 8 combined tackles. 5 of those were solo. Nakobe Dean had 7 combined tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, and forced a fumble. We had Jalix Hunt really showing up in the game. 5 combined tackles, 1 sack, 2 other tackles for a loss. Jalix Hunt was also very present. We had Nolan Smith coming back into the game. He had 2 combined tackles, 1 sack. We had guys like Quinyon Mitchell and Drew Makuba getting into the mix there, 2 combined tackles each, and those guys were really present in the secondary. Cooper DeJean, 5 combined tackles on the day. Jihad Campbell, 4 combined tackles on the day. There was a lot of good stuff. Even one of the Eagles' newest contributors to this defensive squad, Jalen Phillips, was able to get in on the action. Jalen Phillips had 6 combined tackles, 2 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for a loss, and recovered a fumble. So Jalen Phillips made his presence in Philadelphia known, and that is a way that you make an entrance. And I am really thrilled by, just in general, the defense's performance. Were they playing soft at times? Yeah, they were. As the game progressed, they were definitely not playing with a lot of the same aggression, and I think that allowed for the Packers to take advantage of a couple of opportunities. And the Packers' touchdown drive was an 11-play, 75-yard drive that ended, obviously, in 6 points off of that run by Josh Jacobs, and it took 4:46 off of the clock. So that was definitely something that needed to get cleaned up, because Jordan Love seemed to be able to take advantage of key moments with the Eagles' defense. But as I mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles defense really was the star of the show, and they covered a lot of problems offensively, because there were definitely problems. Jalen Hurts, 15 for 26 on the day for 183 yards. He did have 1 passing touchdown, which was an absolute dime to Devontae Smith, a 36-yard touchdown pass that gave the Eagles a 2-score lead very late in the game, and that came off of the heels of a 41-yard pass to Saquon Barkley. So 2 big plays right in a row that really made the difference in this particular game. Jalen Hurts also had 5 carries for 27 yards in the run game, so he definitely helped contribute to that element of the offense. Probably one of Jalen Hurts' bigger mistakes was a fumble that occurred towards the end of the first drive. Jalen Hurts was running down the field. He kind of dives forward. The ball gets punched out, and it gets returned. It does not get returned for a touchdown, because this was very early in the game, and none of the scoring happened before the start of the second half. But turnovers are drive killers. And that, I think, had a huge impact on how the Eagles played over the course of the rest of the game. The Eagles offensively were so conservative for most of this game, it was not even funny. Saquon Barkley did have 22 carries for 60 yards. The Packers were doing a really good job of shutting down the run game, so the Eagles were relying on the pass. And we had top contributors of Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. A.J. Brown had 2 catches on the day on 3 targets. We'll talk about that 3rd target in a minute. But it really came down to the decision making, because, again, while the numbers are there and the numbers tell a good chunk of the story, they don't tell the full story. And the full story is that the Eagles were very routinely, and you can stop me if you've heard this before, because we've been singing this song all season, putting themselves in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, 2nd down and 2 sticks, 3rd down and 2 sticks, putting themselves in these kinds of situations and not trying for the 1st down, not trying to keep the ball, keep the momentum, keep control of the game. They were trying simply to get through, to get by. They were feeling like they were playing scared quite a bit at times. And again, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this was a win. The Eagles rise to 7-2. They are 1st place in the NFC East. They are currently in possession of the tiebreaker for 1st place in the race for the number 1 seed in the NFC. But the Philadelphia Eagles continue to have these problems. And one of the reasons why this is so frustrating is because we keep seeing this week in and week out, and it feels like the Eagles aren't learning from it. One of Nick Sirianni's core values is accountability. And when you talk about accountability, oftentimes it's talking about owning up to your mistakes. Saying something like, I did it, it was me, my bad. Which is true, and that is an important part of it. But it is only half of the story. The other half of the story has to be the second part of that statement, which is, my bad, I will fix it. If you are making the same mistakes over and over and over again, you are not learning from those mistakes. And because you're not learning from those mistakes, you're not really being accountable to everybody else. So this Philadelphia Eagles team, and particularly the offensive side of the football, really seems to be making all kinds of in-game mistakes, in-game head scratchers that make it feel like they don't want to play for the victory. They just want to play to not lose. So as this Philadelphia Eagles team is playing, I feel like they're not playing to win. They're playing to not lose. And that can't be the mentality for this team. And it's not just Kevin Patullo, although Kevin Patullo is the offensive play caller. And it's not just Jalen Hurts, although Jalen Hurts does have the ability to make changes at the line of scrimmage, change the play call, whatever you want to do there. It does extend to Nick Sirianni. And that's going to bring us back to that A.J. Brown target that he did not catch. Because A.J. Brown was 2 catches on 3 targets for the day. That third target came very late in the game. The Eagles defense had a couple plays earlier forced a fumble, which they recovered, giving the Eagles the opportunity with 1 minute and 26 seconds left to play in the game to put the game away. All they needed was 10 yards, and the Philadelphia Eagles win the game. The Eagles, with 1st and 10 at the Green Bay 39, hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley, which is to be expected. Then they hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley on 2nd down, picks up a yard. Hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley on 3rd down, picks up another yard. It is now 4th and 6. And what does Jalen Hurts do? Well, first off, why is Jalen Hurts even on the field? Because Braden Mann should be on there to punt the ball, to force the Green Bay Packers to play with not a lot of time left in the game and with no timeouts. And have to go quite a distance afield in order to be within field goal range to kick a game-tying field goal. But Jalen Hurts is out on the field, and what does he do? He throws a bomb to A.J. Brown, who misses it. That decision should only happen if you, A, do not trust Braden Mann to pin the Green Bay Packers to inside their own 10-yard line on a punt where you're punting from about midfield, and you are 100% confident that A.J. Brown is going to be able to draw a pass interference penalty. Well, guess what? A.J. Brown did not draw a pass interference penalty, and the Eagles should be very fortunate that that ball bounced incomplete, because a worst-case scenario in that situation is the Packers pick it off, return it for a touchdown, game over, Packers win. The second worst-case scenario is that the Packers are able to get enough yards where Brandon McManus, their kicker, is able to kick a game-tying field goal. The game goes into overtime, and it's a complete disaster of an end of a fourth quarter. Now, fortunately, once again, the Philadelphia Eagles defense was able to rise to the occasion. But the Eagles offensively, and especially Nick Sirianni, who I guarantee you was involved in that decision, should not have even put the Philadelphia Eagles defense into that position. You send your special teams unit out, you punt the ball, you pin them deep, and that's the name of the game. The fact that the Philadelphia Eagles don't seem to be learning from their mistakes and instead seem to be doubling down on the decisions that they are making that are leaving us scratching our heads is a problem. And I hope that that turns itself around quickly. Because right now, I could probably pull somebody off of the street who's only played middle school football and they could probably dial up a better offense than what the Eagles are putting out on the field right now. But at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles did come away with the victory, thanks mostly to the Philadelphia Eagles defense, with a few key critical contributions from the offense to put the team ahead. Now they have a short week before they face another team that could very well be vying for that top spot in the NFC, and the Detroit Lions. And we'll see how the Eagles fare against them. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your thoughts about the game? What really stood out to you? What areas of concern do you have? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage. And if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles.